In the video which is going to follow, we will investigate together the new features which have been added from my older version of Pulse to my newer version 14, and obviously the additional features which a Mosaic customer will gain if he would decide to upgrade to Composer. Composer is a higher level than Mosaic, allows me to get additional features which I did not have in Mosaic, and obviously it's making my life easier in terms of lettering editing, of designs editing, and even on quotations using CorelDRAW. Let us start see those things one by one. The first thing I'm going to speak about, new file, are the patches. You have the ability to create patches or templates. Let's see what patches are. Patches basically is one design in which I take an existing design which I call template, which has a name, for example Alex, and I'm creating a number of similar designs with different names. Until today I have to open every design one by one and save it. In the case of patches, I define the number of patches, the horizontal repeats, vertical repeats, and the distance. As you can see, I have the names which I can either type or I can import the name using an Excel file. If I have Microsoft Office 2010 installed in my computer, I can use the Excel import, and as you can see, all the names have been automatically imported instead of me typing them. You now say generate now, and you will see that one design, one file with 6 different designs which are basically the same has been generated. So if I want to change the name Claude, for example, and type in Brian, I just need to make the change I want. In this case, I have one file with 6 repeats of my base design. What happens though if I have a single-LED machine, I want to insert the polo shirt garment and I have those 6 names. Obviously, I need every time the design finishes to stop the machine, take the old frame out, put the new frame in. In that case, I can use patches again. What I will do in this case, I will say that the horizontal space is 0, the vertical space is 0, and I will use stop between patches. That means that every time the first design will finish, the machine will stop, I will unframe and put the new frame in. Let's have a look, generate now. The design is being generated as we speak. And as you can see now, what happens is I have one design which is being repeated, and every time I have the different names. As you can see here. So I save this design, I put it on the machine, and I easily can use my patches. If I want to create 6 different designs with those 6 different names instead of one design, I can use a function which is called templates. In this case, let me say new file, let me take templates, say OK. Let me choose the design I need to use. Okay, let's see where I have the design saved. The design is saved here. This is the same design. Number of files. I will need to say how the file is going to be saved. In this case, again, as you can see, I can import an Excel file again. The names are being imported. and I can decide if I will open all files, if I will open the first file, or if I will not open the file but I will just save the files immediately. Obviously, I can see and update a preview. You see, I have a preview of the file with the name Alex. I can have a preview of the file with the name Claude, or of the file with the name Kevin, or Michael, or whatever I have. As you can see, as a start, only patches and templates are simplifying the process of taking an original design with a name and saving different names. We all know how long time we'll use with that. Now let's continue a little bit further and let us see what happens on the part of lettering. You will see that the difference between Mosaic and Scribe is that in Scribe I have the ability to use the whole lettering functions, which are quite a lot. As a start, I can create my lettering on a baseline which I freely can draw. So let's type Pulse Microsystems. Here I have my baseline. Now what can I do here? As a start, I can individually move my letters on the baseline, which I cannot do with Mosaic, but I can also take the letter, move it by the y-axis, rotate it, change the size, and even turn it into italic. So those are functions I cannot perform with Mosaic. Also with Mosaic, I cannot say I want to create an arc, for example. Let me take an arc. You see how easily I can create an arc. I can see the height of the letter. Let us type the letter. And now I can change the radius of the arc, modify the arc as I wish and I need. Okay, let me fix this. Also, I can use a full cycle. And I can type again Pulse Microsystems. Again, you can see I can move the whole word where I want, how I want, and again I can take each individual letter, move it out of the cycle, make it bigger, rotate it, turn it to italic, do all the changes I want. So the full lettering capabilities are available in Composer. Obviously, there are other things I can also do. I can use 3-lettering monogram. I can use a line vertical option. I can use the line angle. So I'm freely to choose any lettering option I want. And also, for all those users who are on older versions like 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, every time we have a new version, we are adding the number of fonts. So in version 14, for example, I think there are around 150 or more than 150 fonts included. But even though fonts are included, there is always the possibility that one particular font I want is not available. So what happens in this case? Instead of using an embroidery font, I can take a TrueType font. Yes, Composer has the TrueType font import. So I select one of the TrueType fonts which are installed in my computer. I type my text. There you are. Let me select another font. Let's say, for example, Arial. And instead using field type complex fill, I will use a field type which will be satin path. So what happens? As you can see, the software has taken a TrueType font and has automatically converted this TrueType font to an embroidery font. So a couple of new interesting features there in terms of lettering. Let's go and have a look what's happening when I have a design. Obviously, a number of customers who are using a lettering system like Mosaic are outsourcing their embroidery designs. They receive a DST. But in Mosaic, there is no much I can do with a DST file. I cannot go inside individual segments and edit them. I cannot change their outline. I cannot use an outline processor. I have a lot of limitations. However, if I use Composer, I can take a design which I receive from my outsourcing, which usually is a stitch file, let's say a DST file or a TBF file, Tajima binary format, and I can convert this file to an outline file and edit it in a bigger extent than I could before. Obviously, editing a design is not going to give me the options I have when I have digitized the design from zero, which is I can manipulate the design by 100%, but again, I can take advantage of editing and I can go up to 60 to 70% of editing of the existing design. So let me go around here. Let's say File, Open. Let's have a look on the different stitch files we can open. Let us go down here and look on the stitch format files which I have in my computer. Okay, here we are, stitch format designs. Let's have a look at those DST files. So the files you are seeing here are DST files. So in theory, those are designs I've outsourced them, I receive them back, I want to edit them, I want to add some lettering, I want to make some changes, which I cannot do with Composer. So let me open this file. And the software now is automatically converting the file I'm going to import to an outline file. What does this mean? This means that I can now interact more on an existing design. So for example here, I am not very happy with the outline, so I can take the outline. You can see those are things you cannot do with Mosaic. I can edit the outline. I can decide, for example, that I would like to add an underlay on this specific segment. I can say that I would like, for example, to give it a compensation. I can change my start point, my end points. I can come in another segment and have a look. For example, in this segment here, I would like to change the stitch type. So let me choose the segment. There you are. So instead of having a satin stitch only, I will use here the thatched basket. So I'm changing the whole appearance of the design. And now let me see what I can do with stitch count. So using the outline processor, I can change my stitch count, and I have two options here. First of all, I can either use the standard proportional change, and I can say I want to reduce the stitches to 22,000. In that case, you see that the satin density, the tatami density, the tatami stitch length will change on the same percentage. Or I can say advanced, which means that the software will change differently the density or the stitch length, trying not to affect the quality of the design. So I said 22,000 stitches, apply. You can see that in this case he was able to come down only to 24,357. I can again say, let's go down to 22,000, apply again. And the outline processor was able to come down here because this is the best way, the best quality I can have. So it's a very handy, a very important feature, which I can also use to say, for example, that I want to effect only on a specific place like Tools, Outline Processor. I only want to change the run stitch length. So I disable everything and I say here that the run stitch length will be 5 millimeters. Let's say OK. Let's see what happened here. You can see the stitch count has been reduced by almost from 28 something to 26,800, by almost 1,200 stitches by only changing the running stitch length, not affecting densities, not affecting anything. So with Composer you have the ability to take advantage of the outline processor, and with Composer you can convert an existing designs to outline designs and specifically make changes on segments you wish to do changes. So enough for stitch files which I'm converting. Let us continue and let us see what happens if I upgrade to Composer and I have either Coral X3 or Coral X4 installed in my computer. Before outsourcing a design, the first thing which happens is that the customer comes to me and says, here is my file, here is my vector file or my image which I want to see how it's going to look embroidered. So if I have Coral installed, what I can do is I can say new file, and the customer has a vector file. I can say new file, enable Draw Fusion, which will open Coral on the screen. As you can see, this is my Coral window. I will import a vector file in Coral. Here is my vector file. You can see here that I have my outlines which I can edit at Coral and do all the changes I want. And now what happens is I will switch to Composer, and while switching to Composer the software will convert to satin and complex fields, runs, steel, but this obviously is not something which tells you that you're going to digitize the design automatically, you are going to put it on the machine. It is saying to you that I can make a stitch estimation of a vector file. So here is my file. You see, a demonstrator can always find files which looks very well, but those files of course cannot be sent to the production because you have a lot of trims, you have not calculated the running stitches, connections and all those things. However, I can see first of all how many stitches the design has. I can also make the changes I want. For example, this segment here is a satin path segment, but I want to change it to a complex field segment. There you go. Let me define the direction, the inclination of the stitches. And now I can take this design and say to the customer, very nice, the design has 4,568 stitches. So basically I can make an estimation of how much it's going to cost. By taking it one step further, I can come here, take my 3D view, select the garment the design will be embroidered. Let's say the customer wanted to embroider this on a white cap on the front side. Here you are. I can export the image, so you can send the image and save it as a JPEG. So that basically means that I can send this file now to my customer. But obviously, the customer does not only want to have the design or this file of the design on the cup, he generally wants to have a quotation estimation of the work he's going to do. So what happens in this case is that I can come back. Let me open Composer. Let me close the design. Let's close the 3D view. Let's get rid of Throw Fusion, which I don't need anymore. And let's look at a new feature which is available in Composer, is new in version 14, and it's called Quotation Estimation Wizard. So let me pick now the design we have just created, which is this design here. Quotation number 1 for this design. Oh, wrong design, as you can see. So the wizard will give me the number of stitches, the number of trims, the number of color changes, of stops, average handling time per applique, if there are appliques. I can decide what would be my machine speed. Okay, let's say more logical would be for my machine 850. I don't have a single head, I have a 4 heads. You define the number of trim, the time you have for a trim or for a color change. The machine setup time can be 10 minutes because I'm slow. Operation timing, here you define how much time I use for framing on the panel, on the finish garment, or the cups. The next page will tell me the quotation. That means that, for example, on this specific case, I want to quote to the customer, because I have a singlet machine, from 1 to 10 pieces, from 10 to 20, and from 20 to maximum. 1 to 10, let's say $2, 11 to 20, 1.8, and everything more than 21, I will quote in 1.6. Then the material. Obviously, lately we have a lot of additional materials we have to add. What happens if I need to put applique fabric? What happens if the customer has a special thread like a metallic thread? What happens with specific topic? So special thread, I say, will cost me per design $2. It doesn't have an applique, so I need to do anything. I will put a special backing which will cost me 50 cents. Okay? Digitizing. Digitizing is not for free. Either I can decide the digitizing by number of stitches, or usually I give a fixed rate. Let's give it $50. Obviously you can put here the customer name, all the information. Then you decide the quotation, number of pieces. The customer wants 40 pieces, sorry. Promised delivery date, let's make it 17th of April. Next, let's select the material. Here you have the material again. Next, as you can see, this is the quotation page I have, the design, the cost, the delivery date. I can decide if I will have the time per design or not. When I click finish, I now decide if I'm going to print it or if I'm going to send it as an Adobe PDF file. So let's save it here. And as you can see, my PDF file has been generated, quotation number 1, this is the date, time per design, time per order, it will be 3 hours 16 minutes, the price I have quoted, promised delivery day, and the colors. So I prepare this quotation and I send it to the customer without even having started outsourcing my design. So as you can see, Composer is having a number of interesting additional features from what you had in Mosaic, allowing you to be more flexible in terms of creating your own text because you have more possibilities and options on the full lettering functionality. On the editing part of the designs, because you can do more things, you can convert the design from stitches to outlines. You can edit specific outlines. You can use the outline processor to define the number of stitches you want, or to only apply changes, let's say, on running stitches. You can use CorelDRAW, which is the Draw Fusion option if you have a CorelDRAW X3 or X4 installed in your computer, which will allow you to interactively communicate with CorelDRAW. You can send to your customers a JPEG of the garment with the design on top. You can use a quotation estimation wizard. You can use a number of things which you did not have in Mosaic.